I've been leading raw food events and hosting events for about 14 years now, so this is my subject. I've been living a raw foods lifestyle for 20 years in March. I'm going to talk a little bit about the benefits of eating raw foods. I'll talk a little bit about transitioning. A lot of people have questions on how. How do I do this? How do I get started? So I'll go over a little bit of that with you. And I want to have it a little more freestyle. I lead discussion groups every month. Once a month, I invite people. I keep the group small. So if any of you are interested in learning more, if you're just getting started, or maybe you just need support and you want to meet other people, I always limit it to under 15 people, and it's your opportunity to come and ask some questions and getting feedback from the group, as well as me putting my 2 cents in. And there's always a topic to keep you motivated. So I think is that sort of what you were looking for here? Okay. I'm also, at 5, I'm speaking on juice fasting. So if you like me and you want more, you can see me at 5 o'clock. So raw foods. The benefits, why would anyone want to take this on? 20 years ago, when my friend suggested I go on a raw foods diet, I thought she was crazy. I ate just like everyone else, standard American diet, and I didn't think I could sustain myself on eating fruits and vegetables. I'm very thin. I was even thinner then. With all the ice cream I would eat and pasta and all that, I couldn't gain a pound. And then I went on the raw foods, and I actually, after the first year, I gained about between 10 and 15 pounds. So for some people, they gain a little weight that they might need, and other people might lose a little weight that they need. So your metabolism has a chance to adjust. So raw foods, of course, have energy. Right? When we cook our food, we are killing off that life force and energy. I usually have when I do a talk like this, I have a picture taken with a Kirlian camera. Maybe you've seen some of those Aura pictures downstairs that they have. Well, if you took a picture of, let's say, a tomato, you would see a wonderful energy field around that tomato. You might even see sparks of light, like lightning bolts. And this Kirlian camera can actually capture that life force and energy. So we are living beings, and it just makes sense when you think about it that we would put food in our bodies that contain that energy and life force. When we eat food that's, if we shot a picture of that same tomato after it's been cooked, there would be basically just only a hint of a bit of light that's emanating from that tomato, just a hint. It would be fairly dark, no energy field. So if you want to live a healthy life with lots of energy, it makes sense that you eat raw foods. And you're probably sitting there saying, hey, I have plenty of energy. How many cups of coffee did you have today? How much sugar did you eat today? A lot of times we are stimulating ourselves constantly all day long. I just came back from Paris last night, and so I should be pretty jet-lagged by now. But my girlfriend that I went with her, she's not a vegetarian and she's not raw. And I watched that she had to have that cup of coffee in the morning. She had to have some sweet foods. And this was a way of keeping her going all day long. And really, it's taxing on our nervous system to be like stimulating ourselves again and again and again. And then, of course, we need, the French need that glass of wine, because then we need to sedate ourselves. Right, to slow down. Some people have to take Valium or some sort of drug to go to sleep at night. So we're spending our time going from one extreme to the other. But when you get on this path and the body really cleans out, you'll find that there's a certain calm that you feel, but at the same time energetic. You feel very light in your body. So you don't need so much stimulation anymore. And basically, when we eat food, it takes a huge amount of energy to digest. It takes more energy to digest food than it does to exercise. So using up all that vital energy to break down the very concentrated foods, whether it's your starches or refined foods or meat, dairy, heavy foods, takes a lot of energy. But on raw foods, a lot of it's water-based foods, fruits and vegetables. So what are we talking about? Fruits, vegetables, nuts and seeds, sprouts. Then you might throw in a few superfoods, a little algae, a little seaweed, that kind of thing as well. And it's a very simple approach to eating a raw foods diet, ideally. So if you saw me on the panel this morning, I talked about a lot of the restaurants you go to, there's a lot of very concentrated, heavy nut dishes, and that's not really where it's at. I mean, when you're starting out, you might overeat a little on the nuts and the avocados or the young coconuts, but after a while, you sort of want to be filling up on, just easier to digest foods like your salads. And once the cells really cleanse on a deeper level, which happens when you're bringing in the raw foods, but also green juices, energy soup I'm sure you've been hearing about, so blended. And then you find you need even less food. So the idea is that maybe at first you need a little more grounding. You're used to that full feeling when you eat. And then later on, you find that you need less food. Because your body is like a well-oiled machine when you clean out and purify. Does anyone really purify on this diet in New York City? Not completely, because we are exposed to a lot of stress and pollution. The clothes we wear exhale gases, the rug, we're exposed all the time. We have electromagnetic waves. So we can only go so far, but if we can move in this direction, then we're giving our bodies as much of a rest with this food, this raw food, to be able to cope with that percentage of assault that our environment imposes on us. So getting back to raw. Okay, so the energy, life force, we like that. Nutrition, of course, raw food has great nutrition. And I know that I've heard that cooking, let's say kale, they say releases more nutrition. That if you just ate kale, that you wouldn't absorb the nutrition as well as if you cook it, because of the cellulose is so intense, right? So my solution is, if you want to eat some kale, and it certainly does have some good nutrition, you put it through the juicer. Some people will kind of massage some oils in it, or a little lemon juice, and that breaks down the cellulose as well. But generally speaking, raw food offers a superior value in terms of nutrition. And of course, many people live their entire lives on eating primarily cooked food diets. So certainly, you're not going to be malnourished necessarily on a cooked food diet. But on a raw food diet, it's more quality nutrition, right? So that's what we're really aiming for. And it's just so easy to digest because, again, it's water rich. So when we're talking raw food, we're looking at the whole package. We're looking for the juiciness, the good fiber, the nutrition. There's several things to continue in that package that makes it just right, just perfect for our bodies. We're told that we should drink 8 glasses of water a day, and I'm a total advocate that we should drink water. It's very important in addition to our raw foods. But it's kind of funny, you cook something and you're kind of dehydrating the water out of it, and then you have to drink the water to replace that hydration. So why not just eat that strawberry or that orange, and that's going to be packed, again, with just the right amount of fiber and water and all that good stuff. Enzymes. I'm sure you've heard about enzymes. Raw food is just packed with enzymes, and we need enzymes for all our metabolic processes. But when we eat food, if it's cooked, then our body has to draw from its, kind of like its bank, its reserve. So we need to produce pancreatic enzymes to digest that food. So this creates some wear and tear, right? It also accelerates the aging process if we need to keep kind of stressing our body out with trying to compensate for the enzymes to break down that meal. But when you eat a raw food, a salad or whatever it is, that food is going to come in that perfect package with enzymes. So it's going to help to digest itself. So no stress on the body. So then in the long run, your body becomes more youthful, more energetic. It's really, when we consider the fountain of youth, this would be one piece of the puzzle. That brings me to the fact that raw foods is just one of the picture. One aspect in the whole picture of being healthy. So I meet people through my raw foods group all the time, and they've got the raw food down, right? And maybe they're taking their supplements and their enzymes, and you're doing all this, you know, the whole thing. But then they don't look very vibrant to me, just something off. And then I find out that when I get to know them a little bit, that their mind is really the problem. Their thoughts are, oh, nothing ever goes my way, or, you know, life is so hard. And then that really sends a message to the body. Our thoughts send a message to the cells. So how we think, and we can't really monitor our thoughts, but ever since I saw The Secret, maybe you've read the book or whatever, you know, I highly recommend it. It really made me realize I spent a lot of time thinking about what's lacking in my life, instead of focusing on what I want. And Brenda Cobb spoke just a little while ago, and she was talking about this as well. So this is important. Also good clean air, very important. We're lacking a little of this in New York City, but clean air is very important. Maybe you get an air purifier for your home or an ionizer. Pure water, I recommend ionized water. Plenty of guys selling the ionizers downstairs. I have one myself. So the raw foods diet is primarily an alkalizing diet. Nuts and seeds are a little more acidic, so we want a little bit of acid, but we primarily want to bring in a diet that's alkaline. Meat, dairy, rice. The macrobiotic diet tends to be, even though it's vegetarian and vegan for the most part, tends to be highly acidic because it's high in the grains. So raw food gives you that opportunity to alkalize the body. If you want to do this, well, let me not jump around there. That's why I usually have index cards. Exercise, very important, bringing more oxygen into the blood, good for your circulation, keeps you nice and strong, so exercise. Also, good spirituality in your life, whether it doesn't have to be a God thing, if that's not your thing, it could be just connecting with nature, just having that. Good, healthy mental, emotional, and spiritual disposition. And what's the number one thing that people forget when I give my little talk on this? The last thing, if I ask people to say, what are all the components of health, the last thing someone mentions is... Did I mention that? I'm a colon hydrotherapist. Thank you. I have an office here in New York City. Anyway, the number one thing people forget is rest. So doing this lifestyle is like giving your body a rest in a sense, because we're not spending so much time and energy digesting those heavy foods. So rest is also how you conduct yourself in your day. Are you stressed out? Are you dragging yourself around? It's also how much sleep you're getting at night. But rest is very important. True healing, you know, you need to have some rest, because that's when you're sleeping, that's when the body's going into more of a healing mode. And energy really comes from rest and sleep. So when we're drinking the coffee and eating the sugary foods and say, wow, I had lunch, I feel energized, or I had a snack, I feel energized, you're being stimulated once again. So rest and sleep, you take a little nap, you wake up, then you really are probably refreshed. So let's talk a little bit about transition, right? How do we do all this? It's crazy, right? Raw food. So if you're eating meat, dairy, eggs, if you're eating some refined, you like the chocolate bonbons and maybe some chips. So it's a process. It took me a year to sort of get off a lot of those foods to get to the point of being what they call a vegan. And then I was eating healthy vegan. So if you can take the first step of giving up meat, right? And let's say you're saying, well, I'm having a hard time right there, or whatever, wherever you're at. Maybe it's cheese. Cheese is one that's hard for people. So why don't you try giving it up for one day? Just one day. See how that goes. And you're like, okay, that was easy. Maybe you can go 2 days. Maybe 2 days is your limit. So on the third day, you decide to have some chicken or a piece of fish. So play with that. Next week comes along, well, I can give it up for one day again, maybe 2. And then as soon as you open that door, you have to have another experience. So you're going to find something else to eat. And probably since you're really trying to be more conscious about all of this, you are going to make better choices. So then once you find new ways of eating, then it gets easier. But then you might fall back and you're back to, you know, pizza. So you try again. So this is the whole point of it, you know. It's, you keep trying, you keep moving towards that direction. And this morning I mentioned that it's not good to yo-yo. So, oh, I only can do this if I'm 100% raw. Oh, but I can't be 100% raw. I have to have, you know, I went to a wedding and that set me off and now I'm eating pizza and French fries again. But I'll be 100% raw tomorrow and I'll be good for the next few weeks. Oh, I'm off it again. This is bad. So your cellular body holds poisons and toxins and gases. So when we are going through this detoxification process with this raw food that we're eating, it creates an awakening in the body. So these gases and the raw food, it starts to leave the cells. And it's going to find various channels out of the body. As a colon hydrotherapist, I see when people are releasing more gases. I see when people are releasing sludge. So colon hydrotherapy I would recommend with anyone who is making some changes, even if it's a slight change. I've seen people, the only change they've made is giving up smoking. And I see, oh my God, what are you doing different? Oh, you gave up smoking? I can tell. So once you raise the level of cleansing in the body, that means there's more vitality. And with this vitality, when the body gains nerve energy, then it has this opportunity to detoxify. And you want to make sure those toxins and gases are moving out of the body, exiting out. So supporting that with colonics is important. If someone is very sick, like, oh, I just got diagnosed with prostate cancer, then they might want to make a change really quickly. So then they may need to come in and have more of these colonic sessions, so we clean the colon out. Because the colon is the wastebasket of the body. So it does tend, a lot of those toxins tend to be dumped in the colon. And if we're not moving that sludge out, then we risk reabsorbing, which I'll talk a little more about in my juice fasting class at 5. But when you reabsorb these toxins, then it defeats the whole purpose of what you're doing. So that happened to me when I was doing raw. I felt really good and energetic at first. I started about 75% raw. When you get to 75 or 80% on raw foods, fruits, vegetables, nuts and seeds, sprouts, and 25% when I started, I reached that point of steamed vegetables, maybe a baked potato, a little cooked quinoa, brown rice. That's your 25%. Very simple eating, no refined condiments, you know, your healthy oils are good. Then that raises that vibration, that energy in the body, and then that cleansing can begin. So once we reach that point, big stuff starts to happen. And for some people, it takes a little longer for it to really hit, depending on how toxic, right? Have you been on a lot of medications in your life? Have you, were you a big drinker? You know, did you party? How old are you? You know, how old, are you obese? Many factors. The more toxic one is, I'm a steak and potatoes guy. I like a drink every night, a couple of drinks every night. That guy's not going to cleanse as quickly as the vegetarian, right, who's now going raw. That person, the vegetarian's going to, that cleansing response is going to happen much quicker because the body's more ready. So, transition. So, basically, you're going to just, you need to have some discipline in this process. It is part of it. There has to be a commitment. Just laying out your intention of why you want to take this on and being clear about that, because you can always rely on that, whether it's losing weight, whether it's just being more energetic and healthy, whether you want to heal from a disease or some health problem, whatever your motivation is. Maybe it's just because you love yourself and you want to take really good care of yourself. That would be the best of all. I'm always inspired when people go raw, and that's the main reason. For me, I had chronic yeast infections. I had bad skin, constipation, minor health problems, but there was enough that I knew that I had to make a change. I didn't want to be on medication because that's what was starting to happen. I was used to going to a doctor, they give you meds, and then you get better. But for the first time, I wasn't getting better. So I knew I had to make some changes. And in my 20s, I responded very quickly. So, and it changed my life. So it's very empowering when you start to take control of your life and you start to feel better. And there's your motivation. So the raw foods group that I do is part of why I keep doing it. I stay inspired 20 years later, but also to keep connected to every one of you and to keep you guys motivated. I've been a colon hydrotherapist now for 3 years, and I've been doing my group for 14 years. So my heart has been in what I do, mostly volunteer work. And the fringe benefit of volunteering is that down the line now I have a business. So, so it's all, never know. So how do we do this? So maybe you get up in the morning. The best thing you can do is start your day, if you have breakfast, break fast, because we're fasting in the night, with something juicy, right? Maybe it's a vegetable juice. If you really want to be a good raw foodist, you're going to start your day with a vegetable juice with lots of green leafy vegetables in it. Right, the green leafy vegetables are going to balance your blood sugar. It's going to mineralize you. So much nutrition in the green leafy vegetables. Now, if juicing is not your thing or you don't have the time, fine. You're not ready for that. Down the line, you probably want to bring that in. So try the blender, okay? Maybe you're just at a fruit smoothie stage. So you can throw, we like to not make it too sweet, but you're allowed to have one fruit meal a day. So either you're going to have fruit for breakfast, or maybe you put it in the blender, and people like, oh, banana's not good. Have a banana, maybe a green apple, some berries. The berries are going to make it taste great. There was a lady asked me, can you write down a recipe for a smoothie? Oh, here it is. So, so strawberries, blueberries, raspberry, pick your berry. So this is also low glycemic. It's not going to raise your blood sugar. And I put like a half a pint, because I love that berry taste. Throw that in the blender. So that's about half my Vitamix is going to be fruits. And the green apple's a good thing, but you could add, you know, peaches are in season now, a pear, whatever you've got. If it's always the same smoothie, you're going to get bored, and this is not going to work in the long term. So play with it. It's mango season now, so if I'm off my smoothies right now. I'm going for the mangoes. I have the mangoes, and I eat lettuce with it. So I can get my greens in, or I eat with celery. Very yummy. So then the other half of the Vitamix is going to be your green leafy vegetables. Kale, baby spinach, dandelion greens might make it bitter, but they're good for the liver. Your leafy sprouts, not the bean sprouts, the leafy ones, alfalfa, clover, you know, anything with the little leaves, sunflower sprouts. You're not putting oils in this. Not good. You're just going to have fruits and greens. You could put celery. And you're going to add some water. Now, if you want to get really fancy, this is when I put my blue-green algae. This is when I put my green powder. What else do I put? A phytoplankton. That's another class. I put cinnamon. That lowers the sugar also. Cinnamon, very yummy. And then I put some water. Does it sound good to you? Yeah. And I put some water in there. Oh, and goji berries. Just a little handful of goji berries. Blend, blend, blend. So this is like a container, 3/4 full, pretty much. And it's 2 glasses, and I drink that. And I have a busy day. I have my own business. So I don't eat again for many hours. Maybe 5 hours goes by, and those 2 glasses of smoothie, they're green, but so yummy, tastes so good, and I'm good. So fruit, juice number 1. Fruit, blended smoothie. So let's say you're not ready for any of this. Then maybe you want to go with, I'm not crazy about oatmeal and these kinds of things because it is starch. But if you're going from eggs and toast, then I guess the next level would be something like a cereal. Okay, something like that. But ideally, we want to start with something juicy. All right, and if you want to learn how to make other blended smoothies that are not fruit-based, like more cucumber-based or tomato-based, you can have those in the morning. Green for Life by Victoria Botenko has some great recipes on green smoothies. Okay, so lunch. If you need the name, I'll write it down later. For lunch, a salad. Easy. You have to bring your salad to work with you. There's Tupperware. I just came back from Paris. I carried my salad around with me all morning, and then when 1 o'clock came, I had my salad at the museum, sitting outside the museum. I had people saying, you can't bring food in. I'd say, you know, but I didn't care. This was the way I eat, and all they offered was cheese and bread. So that wasn't going to work for me. And so planning is important. And it's, in a way cheaper in a way, because you're not buying all this packaged stuff. So you make a salad, whatever you like in there. I suggest that you, to make it more satisfying, you put grated, some people are sugar sensitive, so if you're not, beets, carrots, but if you are, then you're going with celery, cabbage, that kind of thing. It's going to give it more bulkiness, right? Because the tomatoes, the cucumbers, the green leafy vegetables, very watery, and that's what we want. But sometimes if we're eating a lot of that, it just doesn't feel very satisfying. So a nice hunk of cabbage chopped up in there. I put fennel. I was eating fennel all the way through Paris. It's great fiber. It bulks up that salad. And as a colon therapist, I will tell you, it's going to push that thing through. It's going to push that poop right through. And that's what happens. Sometimes people go raw and they're not going to the bathroom. Oh, my God. So these kind of foods is going to help you to push it through. What else? Yeah, and then you're going to have some avocado, right? This is also going to make it satisfying. You're going to have some fats in there. Very important. You need those fatty acids. If you're vegan, where are you going to get your omega-3 and 6? So I'm a big proponent of flax oil, hemp oil. I was deficient because I was avoiding oils for 14 years. I got the wrong information, and I learned the hard way. That wasn't a good thing. I was eating nuts and seeds. You can get, and green leafy vegetables, you can get your omega-3 and 6, but I was not absorbing. So I do recommend flax oil or hemp, so you can get those needs met, at least a tablespoon or two. And you can, have a separate little Tupperware if you're taking it to work and put a little, lemon juice, lime juice, the oil, and then seasonings. I actually had Ziploc bags in Paris, and one had a curry mix, one had Italian seasoning and garlic powder, and another one had fennel seeds. So there's so many flavors. I have the same salad every day, but what goes on the salad is what makes it interesting, okay, and keeps me interested. And then there's plenty of recipe books. There's the Jenny Kornblit book I saw downstairs, Raw Food Made Easy. She's got a couple of raw pate dressings that you make with nuts and seeds. So that's going to give it more texture. You can also make, take a bell pepper or fennel, chop it up. You don't have time to make all this salad, and just chop it into bigger wedges, a bell pepper, and just scoop it. Scoop out, with that little pate that you make. So I also recommend getting a Magic Bullet. It's a mini food processor. And it's just big enough that you can throw a few things like a bell pepper and some seasonings and your oil and some water. Blend, blend, blend. You have a dressing. It doesn't have to be that hard. And then there's a screw, like a little cap, and you could just take that with you to work. And then when you're ready to have your salad, you just pour it right on there. Chop up your avocado, lunch. So that's what I would recommend for lunch. And then if you can succeed at doing this, you've been raw all day, then we come to dinner. And if you're not ready to continue being raw, to be 100%, that's fine. I still eat some cooked food myself. You have to find what works best for you. So maybe in the dinner time is when you have some quinoa, and you make some steamed vegetables, but then you make a raw dressing. Maybe you take some of that flax oil, and you add a little curry, right, a little cumin. So you play around with it. Again, there's many recipe books. And so you cook your vegetables, make it cool down just a tiny bit, and then you throw your dressing on top of there. So that could be a meal. If you had the avocado for lunch, maybe you're having a nut-based something or other for dinner. When I was in Paris, I was just eating that fennel and the cherry tomatoes with sunflower seeds. I mean, that was a meal. I was eating that in the airport yesterday. So at first I'm like, oh, what do people think of me? Now I don't care. I'm like, what's wrong with you? You should be, why are they eating all of that? They should be eating this way. So don't worry about what other people think of you in moving this direction. Because really it's just about you feeling good, because when it's all said and done, what really matters is all. If I look back on any experience I've had in my life, I always remember how I felt, right? So how you feel about yourself, how you felt, that's what you remember most, and what you saw, it's what you experienced. So what else can you have for dinner? Let's say you're not ready to be vegan. So you're going to have that fish or that chicken, and you'll have your steamed vegetables with that. Again, make a dressing for that. So you can go with that for dinner. So food combining is another piece of this whole thing, okay? And how much time do I got? I'm doing okay. So has anyone never heard about food combining principles? Then everybody, you don't know, okay? So a few people don't know. Do you want to hear about it? Yeah. Okay. So this is very important. 1989, I made the big change, right? I went 75% on raw. But at the same time, I learned about food combining principles. And I don't have charts here, but there are many books that explain these principles and have a chart. If you come see me for colonic, we go over this with your first session and you get a chart. So, or if you come to one of the events at the office at Gravity East Village, I always have charts there. So if you come see me again, I'll give you a chart. So when we eat food, it is not always, the foods that we eat together are not always compatible. And you could be eating organic, and you could eat very healthy foods, like raw foods, but you might feel kind of gassy. So this is a problem, right? Because whenever you're feeling disrupted that way, it's a sign that the food is decomposing in the body. And it could be the combinations of the foods you're eating together. It also could be stress. It could also be that there's a malfunction. Maybe you're not producing enough hydrochloric acid, or maybe you overate, and the enzymes, even in the food, there wasn't enough to compensate the meal because you just overwhelmed your system. So there's lots of reasons why we get gassy. So let's say we're still eating meat or dairy or eggs. This is the most prominent example here. So when you're eating animal protein with starch, classic, right? Every culture, every cultural tradition does meat and potatoes, or eggs and toast, or cheese and bread, fish and rice, pizza, exactly. I was raised Italian. So it was very hard giving up the Italian food, by the way. So, but you move on, and you find you have a taste for other foods, like when you get into this lifestyle. So, okay, so let's say the starch would be pasta, anything made out of flour, bread, rice, potato. And when you eat let's say the chicken with the rice, to digest the food, we need the enzymes, but we're talking cooked food here, so we're going to have to produce some of those enzymes to break down this meal. And to digest the protein, we need a protease enzyme amongst other enzymes. Protease is the one I remember. And then we need an amylase enzyme to digest the starchy foods. When we eat those foods together, protein and starch, meat and potatoes, or chicken and rice, the enzymes cancel out and they neutralize. And so digestion is just not possible without the enzymes. So your body becomes burdened by that food. Oh no. And so what is it going to do? It's got this slice of pizza, can't break it down. So your body just pushes it through your alimentary canal, just pushes it through. And you might start to feel a little tired at that point because it's heavier, right, at that point. And if you didn't eat a big meal, you may not feel it. But as we know, during holiday time when we overeat, we really feel sleepy and tired afterwards because we're overwhelming the system and the food is just not moving through very quickly. So the digestion becomes very sluggish, puts a burden. And so bacteria comes along. I can help. And bacteria tries to, take care of things. Once bacteria is on the scene, we're talking unfriendly bacteria here, they are nature's undertakers. So they start to decompose the food. And that's how it gets broken down. So in my childhood, I had the eggs and toast or the cereal and milk for breakfast. I had my tuna fish sandwich for lunch. And then I had, pasta, cheese, meat, and bread at dinner. So each meal, in effect, is decomposing and fermenting. And it's going to create gases. It's also going to create a lot of toxicity. So how do you want to age your body quick? Just overwhelming your system again and again and again. And in school, I remember trying to focus on the teacher and really trying to keep with it. I remember being very limited in that way. Once I went on this diet, my mind became very sharp, very, very sharp. And I think when this food is fermenting in the belly, meal after meal, it creates an alcohol-like substance. So it's like creating a mini distillery in your digestion. And this alcohol will affect the mind, your clarity of thought, your memory, your energy level. And of course, when you think about a lot of acidity. On the panel this morning, there's a lot of talk about being alkaline or acidic. So I even see some of the raw food people, where they're missing the mark is food combining. Some people say, oh, it's not that important. But I do feel it is, because my colonic tube does not lie. And I see a lot of gassy raw foodists in my office because they're grazing. They're having a little fruits and then having a couple of handfuls of nuts and then they're having a green juice and then I'll have a raw pizza. And that doesn't work because it's one meal on top of the next and the next. And it becomes a toxic waste dump in there. So spacing, that leads me to spacing the meals, very, very important. So let's say, I'm going to tell you right now. So let's say you start the day with that vegetable juice. Let's say you have 16 ounces, you go to the local juice joint, they make you a green juice. Take about 35 minutes to digest that. Let's say you have that big salad for lunch with the avocado and the nice, dressing, all raw. It's going to take about 3 to 3.5 hours to digest that. Let's say you weren't in the mood, so you decide to have your quinoa, your brown rice with your vegetables and a nice oily dressing, maybe even a little avocado. You could do fats with starch. That's going to take about 4 hours. Let's say you're not ready to be vegan and you're still having beef or chicken or dairy or something like that. You want to wait at least 6 hours. So I see people, oh, I just had a little thing of yogurt. Can I eat 2 hours later? I'm hungry. It's probably still in your system. So you really need to space out at least 6 hours minimally for animal protein. And that's if you're combining properly. So I didn't get to this, but when you're eating the animal foods, the best way to have it is with vegetables. So whether it's salad or cooked vegetables, that would work. Fish and vegetables. Yogurt, you'll have a salad with it. So, or by itself, but... Yeah, well, then you should make it a meal. So you're going to have a piece of salmon, and you're going to have a big salad. You should be good for 6 hours if that's a meal. Yep. Excuse me, fruits? No, yogurt and fruits. The fruit is going to turn to alcohol. Fresh fruit should always be eaten on its own, alone, on an empty stomach. Fruits and nuts. I see a lot of gassy raw food people doing fruits and nuts. Very, very bad. Not good. Occasional. You like to have this once in a while. You go to a restaurant, it's fine. Dried fruits and nuts, like a bar, is okay because it's more concentrated. So actually it works out. But the fruit with the nuts will take 3 hours to digest. The fresh fruit, half an hour. So that sugar is going to stay in the body a little longer because you're eating it with a fat, or because there is fat in nuts. So that's not so good. You're holding up the sugar in the bloodstream. And also, the fruit is just going to ferment very easily.
Don't I need a little protein in the mornings with my fruit or my green drink?
Your green drink is a great source of protein. The greens, as I mentioned earlier this morning, the apes live primarily, have this very almost identical physiology as we do. They live primarily on fruits and green leaves. And pound per pound, as many green leaves as fruit. So that is a lot of greens. So when I'm talking including greens into the diet, I'm really saying flooding your system with green leafy vegetables, whether you're juicing them, eating them in a salad, or even steaming them, having them cooked. Lots of greens, really, really important. And that's also going to curb your cravings and your appetite. You won't need to eat as much if you're especially juicing or wheatgrass, having that every day. Okay, food combining. So if you're in the mood for the starch, little brown rice, quinoa, baked potato, you have that with your vegetables, and you could have a fat with that. You can have an avocado sandwich. You could have a little oily dressing on your, like a brown rice with an oily dressing. You can have a little coconut oil in your potato. And beans and legumes, controversial. I'm not a fan. So if you're new to this and you're doing tofu and you're doing lots of beans, then that's fine as a transition period. It is an acidic food, so you don't want to do a ton of that. I'm not a fan of bean sprouts. If you do bean sprouts, I do a little teaspoon. Again, as a colon therapist, my colonic tube does not lie, and I see very, very gassy people on eating bean sprouts. It's just not very digestible. I have a radio show, and I have Victoris, who's going to be speaking next. He is the king of sprouting, and I asked him on the show about bean sprouts. And he agreed with me that they don't digest very well. So he even went as far as to say you have to cook them a little. Bean sprouts. So I'm not a fan. So the reason why beans and legumes, whether they're raw or cooked, don't digest very well is because, yes, it's a great source of protein. It's a good source of fiber, right? It doesn't clog your arteries. Many good things about beans. But unfortunately, a protein with a starch is very starchy. Nature has made beans and legumes to be very starchy as well. And whether it's meat and potatoes or your black beans or your kidney beans or your chickpeas, not going to digest very well. So this should be an occasional food that you have. Maybe you love split pea soup, so you have that once in a while. But it shouldn't be your main staple in your day-to-day. So I'm asking a lot of all of you to make a step like this, and it might feel very limiting. But I've been doing this 20 years, and I still have a little cooked food, and that works for me. So you have to find what works for you, and it's very individual. So as I mentioned this morning, sometimes people still eat a little fish, but they're eating lots of vegetables all day long, small amount of fruit. We raw foodies don't want to do a lot of fruit because the fruit's been so hybridized over the last 50 to 100 years that it's way too sweet. So one fruit meal a day would mean 2 mangoes or 4 peaches or something like that. So one fruit meal, a couple of pieces of fruit would be sufficient. No, it doesn't combine. No. Just with other fruits? No, I don't think so. Definitely not. Okay, so what time do I have? I'll take any questions. Oh, the lady in the back was first. I wouldn't recommend whey protein because it's a byproduct. It's not a whole food. It's another idea with the raw foodist that you want to stick with whole foods. So even if you're doing a green powder, it's at least started off as a whole food. The whey powder is a byproduct of dairy. And you're looking for the protein. What I would put instead, if that's what you want, is the blue-green algae. It's very high in protein. I have a friend, and she had a kidney transplant, and her blood work was looking a little questionable. And she was eating a lot of raw. She was eating very clean, but she, couldn't be complete. And she said, what am I going to do? They want to give me a blood transfusion. And I said, I want you to have a green juice at least every other day. She did that for a couple of weeks. She went back. Her blood work was fine. I just had blood work myself, and my blood work looked amazing. So my iron was actually even a little high for a vegan. And I do a lot of baby spinach, so I think I have to cut back a little. Another question? Gentlemen?
Yes. Sorry. Now, as far as the juicing in the morning, okay, did you say you can do the fruits and vegetables together?
In a juice you can.
Because I cannot eat them. I cannot eat fruits and vegetables together.
Right.
Horrible heartburn.
Yes.
So I've always been afraid of doing that because of, you're getting a heartburn.
Sure. Fruit you can eat only, did I say this, with green leafy vegetables and celery. So you're okay there. And when you're juicing, you want to throw an apple in there, that vegetable juice, that's okay because you're removing the fiber. In that case, I'd say strain your juice even. If you have a situation, I would strain the juice. But blending, like energy soup, you wouldn't add the apple. Personally, I've seen people coming in, I'm like, you're fasting. How come you're so gassy? Are you cleansing? Tell me what you're doing. And I find out it's not a cleansing response. They're like blending apples and cucumbers together in the blender, and it just doesn't digest. Another question? Yes, lady?
When you were in Paris,
Oh.
how did you make the juices for that?
I brought my magic bullet, so it's a mini blender. So I didn't juice. I miss my juice. I can't wait. I just blended. So I would just blend a green apple. The berries were amazing there. I had my green powder, had a few goji berries and some water, and I just throw, and my greens, and I just throw it in there, and I made a couple of drinks, you know. And you have a question?
Yeah, I wanted to find out about tomato because they said it's better cooked. Yeah, that's what you.
Lycopene. Lycopene, yeah.
Tomato than eating it raw.
I don't know, like, do we need that much lycopene? I'm doing okay. I don't know. They come out with all these claims, wheat germ and all this, and then they find out that it's not true, or, you know, maybe I don't need so much lycopene. Maybe I'm getting it from something else, or I don't know. Maybe it's not so important to have all that lycopene. It's for your eyes? Lycopene? Oh, well, they eat raw food and you won't have problems with your eyes. You know, I mean, if you're going down a path where your diet's very clean and pure, then the whole point of this diet, when you're eating raw, it leaves very little behind. So you eat that apple or that celery stick, and it's you're going to digest it, and it's going to carry itself out of the body. When you eat a plate of pasta or a piece of cheese, it's lacking fiber. It does not move through the digestive tract very cleanly, so it leaves obstruction behind, right? Gluiness, right? That plate of pasta, flour and water make a nice paper mache. So that little bit of residue gets left behind, and then the years pass, and when we're young, we think we're invincible, and then we get into our later 40s, and, oh, how come I got this belly? And then I see the men, they look pregnant, you know? And this is years and years and years. I massage those bellies on my colonic table, hard as a rock. Hard as a rock. So a lot of that is impacted feces, impacted food that gets into the tissue, hardens, and just continues over the years. And so this obstruction is not just in the colon, but it gets reabsorbed. And we have waste throughout the body, and this is why people have problems with eyes. It's just waste that gets, the body's very smart. It tries to put it away in the cells in various places. But as we get older, then, you know, the body starts to break down because it's just holding all this toxicity. So to stay younger, we want to keep ourselves clean. So even if your diet's not so pure, then maybe you want to try doing like a vegetable juice fast or a blended fast twice a year or something. So that might help a little bit in getting rid of the toxins. This lady. Oh.
So I'm curious if it's in general healthy to be on a raw diet when you're pregnant.
You don't want to start. You don't want to start when you're pregnant because you're going to start to detoxify.
I'm just curious. I mean, I'm not pregnant and I'm just starting.
I've seen many women who are raw and they've given birth to very healthy babies. Talk to Paul Neeson. He just had a daughter this past year and his wife's been raw. She had a very good, easy pregnancy.
I'm also curious about.
The baby might be smaller, but that's okay.
I also noticed that a lot of the speakers talk about getting off medicines, getting off drugs, and I'm wondering about like birth control.
I've seen people, sometimes they really, it feels like someone hit them over the head. Once you give up the birth control, it can throw you off a little bit. Well, I have one lady, though, she didn't get her period. Like she stopped having her period or something when she went off the birth control. And she had a colonic with me and she got her period again right after.
What's your take about staying on a raw diet? Like, is there does it negate any effects of you staying on some kind of medication?
Birth control, you know, if you're raw, you can do that. I mean, you can do that together. Yeah. Ideally, you know, I mean, I don't want to see anyone get pregnant, but there are other methods. Mm. Gentleman in the back. Food combinations. You know, Paul's book, The Raw Life, is a great beginner's book. I like Natalia Rose's The Detox Diet, also is a very good beginner's book. Any of Gabriel Cousins' books gives a rainbow green live food cuisine. That's a good book. It's packed with information. I like that. And if you're interested in the colon health, Robert Gray's books, or Bernard Jensen has got those interesting books with the interesting pictures. Norman Walker also has a colon health book. You can get those online. Matt Monarch, I think, is here. I haven't seen him yet, but I think he's probably got a few of these books with him. And the small intestine, I consider the small intestine to be a little more of a self-cleaning oven because you have the villi. So little villi, they kind of push the food along. So not quite as problematic as the colon. The colon is the garbage pail. So the food tends to just hang out. And not everyone's got, you're a gentleman, men tend to have a stronger elimination than women. We women, we tend to be more emotional beings. We have fluctuations with our hormones, so we tend to hold more. So men tend to need colon irrigation less than women, I find. The lady here.
Thank you. Would you tell me ripe bananas and let's say almonds that were soaked and then dehydrated with grated carrots?
I would never do that. I would have such a bellyache. You're doing starch with bananas, that's a sweet fruit, and you're doing the protein, the nuts. Your protein, if you're concerned about that, the green drinks, wheatgrass. Brian Clement, you know, I host all these events, so I learn from all of them. He says a double shot of wheatgrass juice is equal or more than protein that, compared to a serving of a T-bone steak. You get a little machine, and then, but if that's not your thing, I'm actually more of a fan of putting the kale and the collard greens and the spinach. I put that through my juicer. You get quite a, I mean, that's very small second to wheatgrass in my opinion. You can get, you know, great green juice that way. And the algae, again, any of them are a great source of protein. So, okay, hand up. Sorry.
Going back to mixing vegetables and fruits,
Yep.
is it the same thing to blend them, the juicer, to have a juice or blend them with vegetables?
The fruits and the vegetables together? You can only do that in a juicer because you're removing the fiber. When you're blending, you're not removing the fiber. You're having the whole cucumber and the whole apple. So this is problematic because your digestive system has trouble breaking down the fiber when you're eating the fruits with the cucumbers. So if you have a salad and you like to throw raisins in it, it's not great.
But it's not with everything, let's say spinach. It's not
Only green leafy vegetables like romaine lettuce, you know, right there, it's fine. Or celery. Anything green and leafy, even a little alfalfa sprout is fine with fruits. Someone back there, I think? Yes? Ah, well, you know, it's no different than your saliva. We wash the flora away, comes right back. I couldn't wash it away permanently if I tried. There's a whole garden that starts from your mouth and goes all the way through. So if you've had an imbalance to begin with, you might still have one, but we wouldn't create it with the colonic. But all of our clients, we recommend, I have some clients that are here in the audience, and we recommend that they go out and they get a vegetable juice. So we're in the East Village. There's two juice joints in one block radius, and Liquiteria is right nearby, which is the best juice joint in New York City. And by having a little vegetable juice, that's going to replenish your flora, your electrolyte balance, and also the enzymes. And then we say wait half an hour, and then you can have your food. When people come see us for colonics, they come see me, I go into detail how to prepare for your session. And I'm amazed. People call me up, oh, I've had colonics before. And I'm like, well, let me just go over a few details before you come in, just in case. And they had no idea of how to prepare. And they had never had very good releasing. So they come see me, and we make sure. So, you know, and it's not stringent, but there's some things we ask you to avoid for a few days beforehand, and it makes a real difference because, you know, it's going to be more comfortable for you, and you're going to have a better session, more release. Yes? 1 gallon of Go Lightly? No. Oh, colonoscopy. Sometimes people come see me before the colonoscopy because they don't want to drink all of that. They might drink half of it, and then they changed it now. Yes, that's better. If any of you have trouble going to the bathroom, we wouldn't recommend laxatives. We would recommend magnesium. So natural calm, we like natural calm. Lady in the back. Yeah, no one's telling me to leave. Okay, yes? Oh, you want to hear? Okay. We'd ask you to avoid all animal protein on the day of the session. Don't want that piece of chicken sitting in there. We're running that water. We'd ask you to avoid all dairy products for a few days, maybe 2 or 3 days before. But if you still drink coffee and you like a little milk in your coffee, that's okay. You'll avoid beans and legumes, tofu, bean sprouts for a good 5 days. I can detect it. I know my gas bubbles. So I know when someone's had soy, even like a few days before. I'm like, So I've been off from work now for about 12 days now. I go back to work tomorrow. It's like riding a bike, you don't forget. What else? No deep fried foods for maybe 2 days. No carbonation. No soda, seltzer water, or kombucha tea for a couple of days. I'm leaving. And finally, no alcohol. No alcohol for a couple of days. I have to go. They're telling me I have to go. We can talk outside.